Paltrocast.
So, Robin, RTZ, how is your day going aside from having to do media?
Oh, doing awesome. I'm down here in Florida and surviving the heat, and just another day in paradise down here.
Another day in paradise. And I know that you were in that Tampa, Clearwater kind of area. How much of the year do you actually get to spend there? Because it seems like in Cheap Trick, it's like 150 to 250 days a year on the road.
I mean, about half of the year I'm gone, and about half the year I'm in town. So that's usually how it goes around here. But I'm pretty used to it. My dad, growing up, he was gone about half the year, and so I'd see him, during the summer months when I was off of school, and then when I was at school, he'd be on the road. So I'm kind of used to the schedule.
Now, before I ask you about The Distance, that great album known as The Distance, I saw a weird gig that you were a part of, and I want you to confirm a theory that I have. So, probably 7 years ago at BB King's, there was a Robin Zander senior gig that had Steve Luongo, but it also had your whole family. You played guitar on it. Your sister sang back up. I think your mom played flute on it. Was that a family vacation that was subsidized by a gig at BB King's?
Well, I remember that gig. It was the first time I'd ever been to BB King's, and I was playing rhythm guitar in the Robin Zander band, and we were doing a tour of the Northeast, and that was one of our stops. And
so it was a tour, not a family vacation. I was wrong.
No, we were gone for about 2.5 weeks, and if I remember correctly, it was in the middle of winter.
Yes.
And it was really, really cold in New York City. And I remember walking out, and back then I used to smoke cigarettes, and I walked out and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to smoke a cigarette. It's too cold. I don't know why I'm outside.
There you go. But that's when I realized, wow, all the Zanders are really, really, really talented. And then fast forward a couple of years where Cheap Trick Like Clockwork every 6 to 9 months is here on Long Island or in New York City. And you go, oh, there's Robin. Oh, he also plays drums. Oh, he also plays bass, etc. And then there was that Rolling Stone article about how you are the permanent sub. But I want to focus on this solo record of yours. Did you record it in batches, or is it that you had 2 weeks off and you went, I'm doing it now?
I had about 2 or 3 weeks to do basic tracks, and it was right before the pandemic. So yeah, this is recorded about almost 3 years ago, and finished pretty much. We just needed to find a home for it. So but yeah, we did about 3 weeks of basic tracks. I play all the drums that you hear, bass, guitar, vocals, piano, all that stuff, keyboards. That's all me that you hear. There's a few overdubs that we did with harp and cellos and trumpets, and we hired people to do that. So we did about 3 weeks of basic tracks, and then another 3 weeks of overdubs. So 6 weeks total.
With you playing all the instruments, was that out of necessity, like other people weren't around and you had the gear around, or is it a personal challenge?
It was cheaper. It's cheaper not to have to hire people to do all that stuff. So no, I mean, in all seriousness, it was, I wanted to do that because I had all the parts. I had the songs written in my head and demoed out at my house. So when I came to the studio, I was pretty much prepared. But the guy who runs the studio that I worked at, his name's Kenny Siegel, and the studio is called Old Soul Studios, and it's in the Catskills in New York. And it's a pretty cool spot, man. We had some fun.
Wow. Okay. So when it comes to playing all the instruments, one of my favorite albums, which people don't love, is the first Foo Fighters record where Dave Grohl did everything except one guitar solo, which Greg Dooley from the Afghan Wigs did. Did you have that as inspiration, or is it just coincidence that you play all the instruments?
Well, I grew up around music, obviously. So my dad had a music studio in our house growing up, and he had a drum kit, and he had the guitars and the basses and the keyboards and an upright piano, and it was all pretty much there for me to kind of jump around and play along the tunes with. So I would I would just lock myself in there for a few hours every day after school and play along to CDs. So that's kind of how I got my start in music. That and watching Cheap Trick as a kid, going to those shows and seeing like a really great live rock band do a really good job, night in and night out. That had a lot to do with it for sure. My influences are, they all start from watching Cheap Trick play and then branch out from there from my dad's record collection.
That's really unique because most people go, what did my parents do for a living? I'm going to do the exact opposite. That was not cool. I'm going to show them. And in your case, from a young age, you actually thought it was cool.
Yeah, I did. I didn't see myself doing anything other than music, and still really don't. I just turned 30, and basically most of my 20s has been spent being a touring musician. And I used to live in Nashville for about 5 years, and a lot of the songs that are on this record were born from songwriting sessions in Nashville. And I just was inspired, to put something out and release it on my own. I finally had some time off to do it, and that's what The Distance became.
Were you initially looking for a traditional label deal, and then you kind of realized, hey, I'm better off independent because I've got a crazy schedule and I don't want to play the game?
Well, I wasn't shying away from people, from shopping around to people that are bigger, or independent labels. It didn't really matter to me, really. At first, I was just trying to get music out, and I had sent the demos to a few people I knew that were in the business, and through my dad that he knows in the business. And the first person to really show that kind of interest was Jack Douglas, and that's who I ended up signing with. He has a label that he just started last year called Confidential Records, New York City. And I'm his first, one of his first artists that he signed, and one of the first that got a record release. So it really started from there. But I didn't have any real plan, whether it was an indie label or a big label. It was just to get the music out.
That's really cool that Jack Douglas, unfortunately being such a big Cheap Trick fan, I know that he works at Cheap Trick and John Lennon and Aerosmith and all that kind of stuff. And his son is now in Aerosmith as well.
Yes.
So that's really cool that your dad has had a 40 to 50-year relationship with Jack. Now, in the case of Jack being your label, is he also managing or overseeing publishing?
Yeah, I'm with his publishing deal, and he oversees the label. But when it comes to recording and everything, the way he got involved was he mixed and mastered the record. So he didn't produce the record. I kind of co-produced it with Kenny, who runs the Old Soul Studios up in New York, and so that's who produced it. And then when Jack heard the tracks, he's like, "Man, me and Jay Messina would love to mix and master this." And then after they mixed and mastered it, they said, well, maybe we should just release this under our label. So it kind of just happened, organically in that kind of way.
Now, what we were talking about before with how much you're on the road, you have stamina and obviously you're a great live performer. Are you at the point where right now you're thinking about, okay, I could do an afternoon solo gig and then the Cheap Trick gig at night?
I don't know how many of those I'd like to do, but I actually just did one recently in Florida. I had my band that I've been working with for a few months now. We did the whole record and a couple covers, and then I turned around and played with Cheap Trick right after that. So I opened for Cheap Trick, and then I played double duties and played in Cheap Trick. And it's not easy, man. It's those songs, some of those are hard songs to sing. So, I'll do it every once in a while, but if my voice allows it.
Got it. Do you want to write for other artists as well?
Yeah, I mean, I write a lot for myself, but I did a little bit of that in Nashville. I would write songs and like show them to people, see if they have any interest or not. I'd say if after I get a couple records out, then maybe I'd like to collaborate. But I have a lot of stuff that I'm working on right now that's going to be on the second record. That'll also be out with Jack's label, and so focused on that. But yeah, always love to collaborate.
You just answered accidentally my next three questions, which were, are you thinking about the next album? Would Jack be involved, etc.? So are the songs already written for the next album?
Yes. Just don't know the order and need to go in a recording studio and properly record them. But the demos are all there, and I have an idea of how many songs and the order and all that. It's just getting it all together and finding a couple weeks to go knock them out the studio.
Got it. Is it you playing all the instruments again on this next record?
Yep.
So you
yeah,
mentioned,
I'm going to keep doing that because I like to save money.
well, and then you get the extra union residuals when it gets licensed.
Yes,
So,
the all important residuals. Yeah.
But long story short, I don't really know how you managed to get all this done, because you have to memorize the Cheap Trick set on 3 to 4 different instruments while doing the 150 or so shows a year, while doing your solo career. Are you a big calendar person, or is this just luck that everything just like a puzzle fits together?
I'm the most least organized person in the planet. I'm not a calendar person at all. I to be honest, I think that it just works because if you're a musician and you enjoy doing it, then each trip and each tour is a new kind of fun little journey. I miss home a lot. I miss being home, and I love my golf. I like to be in Florida and play golf, and other than that, music is my life. So I love it and enjoy it. And when I do have time off, I'm home. And but yeah, it's hard to get all that done. It's definitely a labor of love for sure.
Then another question I have, I know that you went to Berkeley. My theory is that all the people who make it in the music business dropped out of Berkeley and did not finish it. Did you finish Berkeley?
I dropped out and didn't finish it.
Did you go to Berkeley with any people that we listen to the music of, that we know? In other words, when you ask Stacy Jones from American Hi-Fi and Miley Cyrus's band, he'll be like, yeah, me and Abe Laboriel Jr. were there, and you get that whole class. Did you have people in your class at Berkeley that we would know?
I don't think so, but I mean, I went for 3 months. I went to their summer program, so I wasn't enrolled in full-time student things at Berkeley. I just went for a summer. But the people I did meet there were from all across the country and the world, and they were all super talented players and musicians, and still are. Like I'm in touch with a few of them still, and they're all still kicking around and doing their own thing. A lot of them work in studios and do studio work. Some do live performance stuff. It really depends.
Well, going back to an earlier thing you mentioned, golf. I'm finding that there's a huge subculture of rock and hard rock people in the golf world, and it's usually not who you'd expect. And I'm not saying Alice Cooper because everyone knows Alice Cooper, but like punk and metal people big into golf. When you play golf, do you do it to unwind, or do you do it with other music people?
Oh, I go out by myself when I'm here at the house. Well, when I'm on tour, we find our days off where there's maybe a public golf course nearby, and you try to find a place that's cheap, or I don't go out to go to fancy golf courses or anything. I just like to play golf and on an off day. But there are definitely a lot of bands that you wouldn't think are big into golf that I've come into contact with over the years. One time me and my dad were touring and opening up for ZZ Top, and we went out with Frank, and we played a couple rounds with his son on the tour, and it was great, man. And we didn't really expect to get invited to play golf with Frank Beard, but we did, and that was cool. So there's a couple instances. Alice Cooper plays. He does his charity event every year that me and my dad have been doing for the past few years out in Arizona. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot of golf in the rock community.
Got it. Judas Priest, I hear, is another one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
that's interesting.
I think it goes against the image for a bunch of guys in leather to be golf people, but what can you do? But
maybe they suit up in the leather out when they're out in the links. I mean, I don't know.
Or there's a business opportunity for leather-based golf attire, and it's your idea because they haven't thought of it first. Well, two questions for you. One,
yeah,
comes across as clickbaity, but it's genuinely curious. So tell me to F off if you hate this question. But I'm curious if Van Halen was an influence on you early on, because you mentioned Cheap Trick actually being an influence on you, but was Van Halen? Because obviously you're a young man, you're a young gentleman, and when you were born, Van Halen was already a little less cool.
I love some of their records. Yeah, I mean, I never, when I first started listening to them, I was kind of just enamored by Eddie, and if anything, Eddie, when I was a kid, I was pretty into. I thought he was really cool, but my dad and them have kind of a history. They used to tour back in the 70s and 80s, a decent amount together. I know Cheap Trick opened up for Van Halen, and in the 70s, Van Halen opened up for Cheap Trick. So they have a relationship for sure. They've been in the studio together, when someone's over in LA recording a record, Van Halen was right next to Cheap Trick numerous amount of times, so they respected each other. So yeah, I'd say for sure Eddie was an influence, and an amazing guitarist.
Got it. Last question for you. I have to assume there's a lot of downtime between all the gigs with travel, so therefore you're watching a screen of some sort a lot. What are you watching on TV these days? Any recommendations you could pass along for me and the wife? Because every time we watch a show, we kill it in 3-4 days and we go, what's next? We finally finished Beef last night, The Bear right before that. What should we be watching, Robin?
Oh, man. You're asking the wrong guy, man. I'm a podcast guy. If anything, I could suggest some cool podcasts.
Please tell me more about podcasts.
I'm a big British Invasion fan from the music from the 60s and early 70s and glam, and so there's like, for example, there's this one podcast that is called Recording the Beatles, and it really goes into depth into some of their process of how they went into a studio and demoed out a song and started with the demo and then started adding pieces, and like they go note for note for like a song like Strawberry Fields, how they produced it and put it together, and how George Martin helped with the arrangement, and all the weird kind of technical stuff I'm really into with recording studios. So they get into that, and it's really interesting. So that's something I like to listen to. I love Club Random with Bill Maher. I think that's really a great podcast.
I'm sorry to cut you off there, but that Club Random, he got some really interesting information out of Billy Corgan. Did you hear that one?
Yeah, I did. I checked out the Billy Corgan one. I just like the format of it. He's super, in his zone and relaxed, and he's like smoking a joint, and then he's got these people that are just coming by into his basement. It looks so cool. It's like, I love the premise.
Totally. Have you heard of, before I let you go, have you heard of a new podcast that launched yesterday called One Song? It's on Kevin Hart's network on Sirius XM, and then it goes to Apple. And it's these two guys who are comedians, musicians, DJs, and they pick apart songs from all the stems. So famous songs, they listen to it and give the history after digging into the stems, because that's what the Beatles one sounds like.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I love that premise. For any kind of musician that's into the technical, like the behind the scenes stuff, that I'm all into that. I'm all into that for sure.
Well, bottom line is, love your music as a solo artist, love your music with Cheap Trick. Looking forward to whatever's to come from you in the near future, including that second solo album. So thank you for the years of great art, Robin.
Hey, thank you. Anytime. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Paltrocast.